This is part 2 of my interview with the INEOS Tech Chief. If you want, you can listen to the whole video as a podcast, or you can jump around using the chapter links to specific sections you're interested in. On the question of driver control, when you engage the rear cross-axle differential lock, it disables brake traction control on the front axle. And also, you have to engage the rear locker, then the front locker. You can't do it the other way around. And in addition, when you enable either locker, it disables hill descent control. Why is that? Because that to me would appear to conflict with the goal of complete driver control.
Yeah, I mean, usually when you go off-roading, the first lock, or you engage your center lock, and the next lock what you will engage is the rear lock. Yeah. Honestly, I don't see really, when I'm looking back into my testing experience the last 4 years, I don't really see a scenario where I need my front differential lock, but not my rear. So we said, okay, from a complexity point of view, we are always going with middle, rear, front. Beside that, I mean, the front differential lock is probably the lock you're using at least, or the less, because it always limits you in your mobility, in your steering behaviors. So that's why we chose that order to do it. And that's also why we choose, if you disengage your rear differential lock, it automatically disengages your front differential lock.
Yeah.
There's also a safety aspect to it, because of I would say the limitation of steering in the front axles. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I didn't answer the complete question. Can you maybe?
The other part of it was when the rear is engaged, brake traction control on the front axle is disabled, and also when you are descending a hill, you enable HDC. You enable a locker, but then you cannot enable HDC in addition to a locker. And why is that?
Yeah, I mean, our HDC is working with the ESC. Yeah, so we are electronically braking every single wheel, and by engaging our locks, we disengaging our ESC. So therefore, both systems, they need to be separated, and therefore, you're right. You cannot operate both. You need to disengage your lockers, or at least the rear, the front and the rear. You can have the middle, but not the front and the rear to have an working HDC. You're right.
Yeah, I just queried that because in other vehicles, both systems remain active, even though one axle differential lock is enabled. So I was surprised that INEOS hadn't implemented that. Okay. The footrest has come in for quite a bit of criticism on the right-hand drive vehicles. What actually is underneath there? Are there any plans to change it? Is there anything owners can do about it?
That's exactly the area where our BMW hot end is coming out of the engine. So this is, in that case, this is just having the BMW engine. We have the hot end over there, and during our testing phase, you can have temperatures in that area up to 700, 800 degrees. Yeah, so there have to be a proper heat shielding underneath, and therefore it's a protection that you're not getting a very hot foot in that area to have the right geometries there. So not to have rumors, but as long as we have a BMW engine, you will have that footrest. Yeah, there is no way around that.
Okay, all right. Is it present in both vehicles, petrol and diesel? I'm not sure about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, geometry is the same.
Yeah. Now the winch, it's a 5.5 ton winch, which is quite a lot for a vehicle of that size, but it's only got 15 meters of rope on it, which is actually very short. Why so short? And could it have been made with a longer winch rope if it was maybe a conventional 9,500 pound winch? And also, it's a winch unique to INEOS and the Grenadier. It's not one of the standard low mount winches you can just bolt in from anywhere. So, can you talk about how that winch came to be, please, and why it isn't a standard fit, and why there's so little rope on it?
Yep. I think we are still the only OEM in the world providing a winch from the factory. We are providing that winch in the European market, in the US market, in the Australian market, all over the world. So we have to fulfill all of the regulations, including pedestrian protection in Europe, and all the crash performance we needed to fulfill also with a winch. So therefore, I can tell you that that was also quite a challenge for the engineering team to implement that winch in that area, because that changes the pulse in a crash. And therefore, there was a very small window where we were able to really fulfill the regulations and have the winch in. So that was just a limitation, because we cannot just fit any winch into it. We had to take that, or I mean, it's an adjustment of the winch. It's not a complete new development, but it's an adjustment of the winch. And because of the limitations in the package, there's also a limitation then in the rope. Yeah, and that's just a combination. 5.5 tons. In some other areas where you can see on the manual, to 45 degrees on the sides, you have still 3.5 tons where you can tow. Straightforward, you have the 5.5 tons. So there's just a limitation in geometry based on the requirements for our crash.
Now, the fuel tank's 90 litres, and in Australia that has come under a lot of scrutiny and criticism, because we typically like to have our vehicles, a vehicle like that, you'd want to have 130, 140 litres. Some people fit more. So
Yeah.
the other problem was that looking underneath the Grenadier, it was difficult to fit any more fuel tanks. There is underway a 68-litre fuel tank from Brown Davis. What consideration was given to extended range operations in Australia and other countries, if anything?
I mean, like you said, if you look under the vehicle, there is just not more space. If you take a look at the geometry of our fuel tank, we tried to have it as efficient as possible to carry as much fuel as possible, and that was just the limits. We were fully aware that in some countries, it's Australia, it's probably some areas in Africa, would like to carry more fuel. But here again, and I know about some, I would say, adjustments of some customers, that they are carrying more fuel, but they will probably not fulfill our crash specifications for the vehicle all over the world. Yeah. So this is, at the end, it's package, it's crash requirements, and therefore that was the maximum what we can do from an OEM side.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when I've been testing the Grenadier, I put it up against Defender, Y62 Patrol, and LC300. One thing which was notable to me was that the brake traction control was slow to act and not overly effective compared to those three vehicles. The difference was quite stark. Now, once the lockers were engaged, to some extent, that can fix that problem depending on the terrain and the situation. But I was surprised that for a vehicle developed so recently with all the Bosch electronics, the brake traction control was as ineffective as it was. Can you comment on that?
I mean, at the end, we had the opportunity to develop a vehicle from the scratch, and that gave us a great freedom in developing a vehicle like the Grenadier. But at the same point in time, everybody needs to think about you are delivering or developing a complete 100% a new vehicle. Yeah. So as engineering, anyway, you're probably never satisfied with your development. You can always improve in some areas. But in that case, we decided, yes, that's how we will start with our vehicle. I'm not saying that we are not improving that area.
Yeah. Okay. So on that subject, are there any improvements planned, facelift, any changes, rectifications? I know there's new software updates coming out for the vehicle. What's in the pipeline? What could you give owners to look forwards to?
I mean, I cannot tell here too much for sure. We are looking into improving our vehicles. There are two sides. One is that the regulations are changing almost every 2 years. You have new regulations, so therefore we will update the Grenadier to fulfill all the regulations also in future. That's clear. Beside that, we have some learnings. We listen to our customers. And we will work on improvements in different areas. But I mean, what I can tell you is, or maybe we are coming later to the EE questions, what we have improved with the latest software. I mean, that's probably what I can explain you right now. We have some, we call it bug fixes. Yeah, you always have when you develop a vehicle, there are some bugs in the EE system, and you are then, I would say, deciding is that a bug a customer can see. You also have some bugs the customer will never realize because it's just a timing somewhere in the ECUs nobody will realize. But we're still working on those. But for sure, yeah, we have an improvement of the stability for the GPS for CarPlay and Android Auto. Yeah, so that will come. An improvement in the radio quality. Yeah, so we changed some parameters that we have a more stable radio reception. I mean, that's the most things in our update for model year 23. Some, I would say, bug fixes in the background as well. And for the model year 24, we have wireless Android Auto is introduced. We have a full screen of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Yeah, so you don't have the menu outside. You have a full screen next to your driver's informations. And also with a rear view camera, we are using a full screen now. So there are some minor adjustments. So you will always have the driver information on the one side, but we are using the full screen now for the rear view camera as well. Yeah. So those are some minor improvements. What is already coming. And as mentioned, yeah, for the future, we're listening to our customers and we keep on improving the Grenadier for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if the brake traction control was going to be changed or to be quicker reacting, would that be a purely software change or would it require different hardware? Because you've obviously got wheel speed sensors, which I assume are one of the latest ones. So I imagine the data stream would be okay. It's more what the ECU does with it activating the individual brakes.
Yeah, no, it's a software. It's a software update. but you need to understand when we are doing a software update of an ESC, because the ESC is a safety relevant system. Maybe sometimes people things like, yeah, just update the parameters and everything's fine. But it's not that simple. Usually we need at least one winter, we need one summer. That takes more than a year to do changes in an ESC system. The first calibration is more than 2 years to really have a reliable system here. But as I said, yeah, we're looking into it, but it's not just like a fix like that. Everything in the automotive industry needs to be properly tested, needs to get a properly approval then at the end, and then finds the way into the vehicles for the customers.
Yeah, I want to come back to that point in a moment. But when the vehicle's got its center differential locked, does the ESC or traction control or any other system change just with locking the center differential?
Yes. Already with the center diff lock, we are changing the parameters in the ESC. Yes.
Okay, in what way can you say?
I mean, just thinking about operating the vehicle in the snow. Yeah, as soon as you have the center diff lock in, you can have more wheel slip, and you can also have a little more fun with a vehicle than in, doesn't matter if it's snow or sand. So that's I would say the reduction of the EC system here helps operating the vehicle in such situations. Yeah.
So slightly relaxed ESC.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And in low range, does that change again? I
That
think
changes
ESC
again. Yep.
goes completely off in low range, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And does the brake traction control
and does not completely go off. What we still have is the anti-roll detection.
Okay.
Yeah, so the anti-roll detection will be on all the time. But that's a very weak ESC at the end.
It's very extreme, the anti-roll for in most companies. Is that the case? Well, it's a very extreme situation that the anti-roll intervenes in. Is that the case for INEOS?
Yeah, it is absolutely. Yeah. So honestly, I was never myself. I was never in a driving situation where the system needed to operate. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Does the brake traction control calibration change in low range or when off-road mode is selected?
I need to take that away. Sorry, not 100% sure. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't noticed it change, but I just thought I would double check.
Yep.
It's the sort of stuff people know if they're going to be in low range and trying to get out of a sand dune, for example, and stuff like that. Okay. So if you found that interesting, you might also want to have a watch of my videos with the engineers behind Toyota's LC300. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you've got any questions, please use the comment section.